Hello everyone, welcome to a brand new episode of the Sports Insight with your host Alamdar Khan. And as you know, we basically talk about sports from all across the globe. And yes, you can reach us on our social media handles, which is at the rate of Indus News Sports. Yes, that is the best way to interact with us so that we can know what you really want to know about sports. And it would be more interactive for us if we do the same. But anyways, what I'll do is I'll definitely head on to the headlines to begin the show. Yes, Cricket South Africa announces the Proteas test squad for Pakistan tour. We're looking forward to talk on that. And Carlo Vincius hat-tricks actually sends Tottenham to the next level in the FA Cup. Yes, that was interesting, and there is more coming in your way with regards to that. Not only that, Scott McTominay actually scored one goal, which is Manchester United won in the third round of FA Cup. And then AC Milan beats Torino as Ibrahimovic returns from his injury. We'll surely be talking more about this in detail. All right, Tokyo Olympics, safe and secure. That's what's been told lately, despite the coronavirus emergencies. So we'll talk more about that and see what's happening. All right, so yes, those were the headlines. And yes, as discussed earlier, Cricket South Africa has announced their test squad for Pakistan tour, and that would be an interesting journey for them. Not only for them, I'm 110% sure it would be an interesting journey for us as well. But if you look back, really, South Africa actually managed to win against Sri Lanka, which was an amazing victory. They literally won clean 2-0, which was really, really interesting. And I'm sure their morale is really high up there. But for us, it's technically very hard because we ended up losing the entire series against New Zealand, which we'll definitely be talking about. Anyways, I have Daniel Gallen with me all the way from UK. Thank you very much, Daniel, for joining us.
No, my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
So Daniel, we just start with the entire perspective of, as discussed before, that so now Cricket South Africa has announced that your team is coming to Pakistan. So it's going to be an interesting tour for them. But their morale is really high. If we go back 2 years, Sri Lanka actually won against them on the same test series. But this time, their morale is up. They actually managed to clean sweep against Sri Lanka. So how do you see their morale up, and how do you see them taking the journey when they visit Pakistan by the end of the month?
Well, look, it's always better to win a test series than to lose one. I think South African fans and journalists and obviously the Proteas camp will be realistic about the series victory. Sri Lanka were effectively the walking wounded. I think that first test match they only ended with 7 fit first-team players, and by the second one, I think Sri Lanka were already a beaten side. So yes, South Africa will take heart from the 2-0 victory. Like you said, in 2019, Sri Lanka came and whitewashed South Africa, being the first Asian side to win a test series in South Africa.
Right.
So South Africa will be happy, but still a team developing, still a work in progress for Mark Boucher and Quinton de Kock, the captain. So yeah, there'll be positives, but I don't think they'll be getting too far ahead of themselves.
Right. So with regards to, let's talk about the pitches here. Let's talk about, obviously there's a big difference in the pitches that in Pakistan has. What do you see? What strategy do you see with regards to South Africa's bowling side? Because either it's going to be, do you think it's going to be like 2 fast bowlers and 2 spinners, or do you think it's going to be like maybe 3 fast bowlers and a spinner? Because I was like going through this, and I think they're like 2 new bowlers that have been added. Obviously they're medium paced. So how do you exactly see their bowling attack for Pakistan?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think the rise of Vion Mulder, who batted at 7 and offered that extra seam option against Sri Lanka, his rise to prominence has definitely given South Africa a lot more balance. In previous series, the last time South Africa were in Pakistan, which was 14 years ago in 2007, they had Jacques Kallis, who, as we know, apart from being a great batter, also even during the latter part of his career, offered enough with the ball that they could play the extra player, as it were. So Vion Mulder at 7 allows them to play the extra spinner. Keshav Maharaj, I've been on record already saying that I think he's South Africa's best ever spin bowler, certainly
agreed.
in my lifetime. So he's a certainty. And then I think they'll go with Bryce Shamsi. He's in the side for the first time, I think, for a few years now. 2018, I think it is.
Right.
So he offers something different. Left arm wrist spin. he is a tad expensive, and he does lack the control with the red ball. He's such an effective white ball player, but as we saw with Imran Tahir, that doesn't necessarily translate between the formats. But I think he will get a go, certainly in the first test.
Right.
And then a return to fitness from Kagiso Rabada just brings some star power to the lineup. So yeah, I see Anrich Nokia keeping his place in the side. So if it was me, I'd have Vian Mulder batting at 7, and then the 4 bowlers would be Maharaj and Shamsi as our spinners,
Right.
and Kagiso Rabada and Anrich Nokia as the post bowlers. But of course, George Linder's in the side.
Right.
He's already played a test match against India.
Right.
Very tall, very handy left arm finger spinner who gets a lot of bounce, and he's got a first class batting average of 30.
Right.
So for a change, South Africa arrive with healthy spin options. Look, it's going to be an immense challenge. None of these guys have ever played a test match in Pakistan.
Exactly.
Faf du Plessis captained the The Independence Cup,
Right.
T20 series. He captained the World 11 against Pakistan, so he's got some experience. A handful of them have played in the Pakistan Super League, but no, this will be alien territory for them.
So one more thing that I wanted to add. So there are like two bowlers, specific two individuals that I was reading about. One's Darren and Othniel Bartman. Yeah. So these two bowlers are the major new entry that I see, because I think with regards to the performance that really took place right now, I don't think they were on board. So what strategy do you think of bringing these new talents in? Would you tell more about these lads?
Yeah, Darren Tapulvillian and Othniel Bartman, they both play for the Dolphins. They not express pace. They move the ball around. Durban does provide something for the seam bowlers, although it's if anything probably the most spin friendly of conditions apart from Port Elizabeth in South Africa. I think they've probably gone for the experience. I'd be surprised if either of them play.
Yeah.
Like you say, they weren't in the squad for the Sri Lanka series.
Yeah.
They have been drafted in. I mean, Lutus Apamla,
Right.
who debuted against Sri Lanka, he's still in the squad. So I think he's probably ahead of these two
With the
newbies.
experience,
I mean,
right,
they're 26.
Yeah, with the experience.
Yeah. I'd be very surprised if they do play. But it's great experience, and South Africa's always had a healthy stock of seam bowling options. So it's good to see them get the Proteas call up.
Now that would be definitely interesting. So with regards to obviously the entire planning because definitely after winning against Sri Lanka, the morale is definitely up. So if we really switch down to, let's talk about the recent upset. It was a major upset for us when it came to Pakistan versus New Zealand. And knowing the fact that initially when I was totally following the news from the very start, when Pakistan cricket team went there, they had to be in quarantine. And during that quarantine situation, they were told not to practice, and they had so many things to and question and answers to follow. Obviously, there are rules and regulations of different countries when you're on tour, and specifically with regards to COVID-19 situation. So I think it's almost everywhere. But then not practicing and coming to a point of the major defeat that they faced, because it's very difficult for Pakistan cricket team to specifically the shorter deliveries. They're like really it's really difficult for them to play. So my question is, where do you see this entire Pakistan versus New Zealand series, and where do you see now what would be the morale of Pakistan right now?
Well, again, as you mentioned, COVID has made it incredibly difficult for sides to tour. As we saw with Sri Lanka, they came under-prepped, which is what led to so many injuries. You saw the way the Pakistan batters faced the short ball, as you said. It looked like they just weren't quite used to the conditions. It's always hard when Asian teams go to non-Asian countries and vice versa. We've seen how South Africa have gone to Sri Lanka and India recently and been hammered because they're just not used to the conditions. So when you add COVID into the mix, it makes touring even more difficult. I don't think the results, the margin of victory for New Zealand was large. It was an innings and something in the second match and 100 runs in the first match. Yeah. But from what I saw, I don't think Pakistan acquitted themselves so badly. I mean, let's also remember that New Zealand are now the #1 ranked team in the world.
True.
Their bowling attack is phenomenal. Kane Williamson is probably the form batsman in the world
ever. Yeah.
And he's got deputies around him. So I don't think Pakistan embarrassed themselves, even though the scorelines would suggest that there was such a big gulf. And I think they'll be confident. South Africa haven't toured Asia with much confidence and success recently.
Right.
They did win the last series, but that was 14 years ago with an all-time great side. You know, South Africa arrived with a very inexperienced batting lineup.
Yeah.
So I would be surprised if Pakistan go into the series without much confidence of a victory. Certainly of giving a better performance than they showed against New Zealand.
Yeah. So I think so from strategically how I see it, because obviously it would be the home ground for Pakistan, so it would be definitely easier for them to perform well. Because before flying into New Zealand, I remember we had Zimbabwe tour in Pakistan, and Pakistan obviously managed to win like 4 games against them. And Zimbabwe, I think, just won one of the games, which obviously there is always the home ground edge. But as you mentioned, the COVID situation has brought players, teams to this situation of psychological dilemmas, issues, which are slowly and gradually, if you notice, it's growing. Even if you practice, once you're on tour, you're not home, you're out of your comfort zone. Obviously, you're there to practice, you're there to play, you need to perform. But how do you still see, because once South Africa is going to come here, will they be facing the same challenges that we obviously faced in New Zealand?
Well, in a sense that the conditions will be foreign to them, and not many of them would have experienced it. I think there is certainly a parallel there. Look, traveling for these cricketers at the best of times is always difficult. But one of the great things about being an international cricketer is that you get to experience the culture. You get to go out into the streets. You get to meet the people.
Right.
You perhaps get to do some charitable work, which ingrains you within the culture of the place that you're touring. Now staying in the bubble, being locked away, I think claustrophobia is definitely setting in. Definitely. You know, a few of these guys have come from a long
Daniel,
IPL.
what I'll do is
Daniel,
what I'll do is I'll just take a quick break and we'll continue our conversation with regards to the COVID situation that's taking over with regards to affecting the mental health of the players as well. See you guys after the break. Welcome back to the Sports Inside with your host Alamdar. And yes, we were talking more about South Africa's upcoming tour to Pakistan. And I still have Daniel Gallen with me all the way from UK. Daniel, once again, welcome back. And yes, we were talking about the mental health situation because of which the players have to face a lot of issues due to this COVID scenario. So how do you see South Africa's, as we were talking before the break, how do you see South Africa's visit? Is it going to impact them the same way that it truly impacted Pakistan cricket team when they went to New Zealand?
Yes, I think so. You know, some people might think that we make too big a deal of the mental side of this game, but you know, we've seen in recent years Marcus Trescothick famously in the UK talking about mental health and how difficult it is for cricketers. But that's at the best of times. Now you add COVID to it and uncertainty around the world and the distance from families and being in the bubble and that sense of claustrophobia. Yes, I think it plays a massive role, and I think that's why we're seeing touring teams struggle. Right. I think that's why Pakistan struggled in New Zealand partly. I think that's partly why Sri Lanka struggled in South Africa, and I guess that shows how well India are doing in Australia. I think we can't discount. Yeah, I think
because for now, even like you said, India versus Australia, we saw a major upset before, you know, in one of the test match between them. But then looking into the entire situation right now, they're still in a very different conflict. The BCCI is still trying to get in touch with the government there, and they're trying to ensure that, you know, somehow the other they managed to give more of a leveraged isolation perspectives and leveraged rules with regards to the players not being alone and being on the same floor and obviously eating together and stuff, because that's also a moral booster for, you know, the team members, right?
Well, look, from a selfish point of view, I really hope that this next match goes ahead. I mean, it's been a fantastic series. The way India managed to secure a draw in this third test is quite remarkable, and that they've been doing this without Virat Kohli speaks volumes. So yes, I hope it happens, but you know, we can guess what's going to happen, but with COVID, the goalposts keep moving day by day. So let's just hope that things do get better. Australia seems to be handling the crisis better than most countries, certainly than the country I'm living in and my home country. So let's just hope that it goes ahead, because it's been fantastic cricket, and it's good to see, you know, with Sri Lanka struggling, with Pakistan struggling, it's good to see another Asian country doing well. You know, this is a global game, and we want all regions to do well.
Right. Okay, so let's come back to Pakistan versus South Africa once again. So as you know, our backbone is with regards to Pakistani cricket team. We're really proud and we're really focused. We always focus on the bowling side. even though in New Zealand there was not the best of performance that we managed to give, but even then we tried our level best of not having that control on our. Obviously, the more control we have in our home ground is obviously lesser while touring. So, how do you see South African batsmen facing Pakistani bowlers in Pakistani pitches?
I think it's going to be a struggle. I think if any batsman's going to stand up and make some runs, he's going to really make a name for himself. I mean, I've just looked at the stats in the last 5 years.
Right.
There's only one recognized batsman who's averaged above 30, and that's Dean Elgar with an average of 31.
Exactly.
Faf du Plessis, in Asian conditions, that is. Faf du Plessis averaged 24, Quinton de Kock's averaged 20, Temba Bavuma's averaged 18. So South Africans tend to go to Asia and not make many runs. So if anyone's going to make some runs, they're going to really have to step up. Elgar's return to form against Sri Lanka showed that he's gritty and determined and can handle himself on rising pitches, but we do wonder what he's like against spin. Aiden Markram is almost racked with nightmares the way he faced spin. Rassie van der Dussen is untested. Faf du Plessis has now got seniority but without captaincy, but like I said, he's only averaging 25. Quinton de Kock is going to have a big season. Temba Bavuma as well. So I think they're going to struggle, but I think they're going to be really excited by it. I've spoken to a few of the South African cricketers, and like me, they grew up watching Waka Yunus and Inzamam ul Haq and Mushtaq Ahmed and my personal, one of my favorite cricketers of all time, Wasim Akram. And right. There's a mystery about Pakistan. There's a romance about Pakistan bowlers, and I think they're just going to be so excited to go and test themselves in like I said, in foreign conditions against a side that they don't know too much about.
Yeah, absolutely. And the most coolest thing about Pakistan cricket team is their unpredictability. So when they're on fire, they become this unstoppable team. When the bowling is on the full positive motion, I think they become these unstoppable powers. But yes, it's going to be a very interesting match when it comes to South Africa and Pakistan for sure. It would definitely start from the Test cricket, which will be in Karachi, and the second Test will be in Rawalpindi, and the last three will be the T20s, which will be very interesting because that's like more of the fun part when it comes to T20s, and all the enthusiasm and all the energy levels go up. I still personally, to be very honest, I still remember South Africa has always been my favorite team, to be very honest to you. And I still look forward for this amazing performance that they are looking forward on doing. Okay, one more thing finally with regards to all of this. Do you think Pakistan will need to make some specific changes, or should they specific changes? Like, for instance, let's talk about, obviously we had a tough time back in New Zealand. So I just want to link it to that, because currently we are going through some serious thought process of changing. Even the bowling coach and the head coach has been called in by the Pakistan Cricket Board. So how do you see this? Would this impact the morale of the team as a whole, Pakistan cricket team?
Look, I mean, without being disparaging, it seems like, I guess in a similar way to South Africa, it seems like Pakistan, if there isn't a crisis at board level, something is going wrong. South Africa and Pakistan are brothers in that sense, where board level shenanigans seem to be ubiquitous throughout the year. So I would be surprised if that impacts them. I mean, your viewers will know more about Pakistan cricket than me, but I think the scorecard probably doesn't quite reflect how they fared in New Zealand, and going back home against a side that doesn't tour, I think they'll be full of confidence. I mean, I'm personally very excited to see Yasir Shah bowl. I think he's a wonderful bowler, an exponent of one of the most difficult things to do in cricket, which is wrist spin. So, no, I mean, it would be remiss of me to say a specific change would be required. I just think that Pakistan should go into the series refreshed, confident, and just invigorated that they'll be playing in their home conditions against a side that won't fancy it.
Right. Like I said, we still will have the edge. We're still hoping Babar Azam gets back from and recovers from his injuries, which obviously took place. That is something that, because it kind of brought in the trickle-down effect if we really look back into the Pakistan versus New Zealand series. As we started off with that entire COVID situation, then coming on the ground, not practicing. We lost the first match, we lost the second match, and then came the third T20. And when the third T20 came, Pakistan was entirely different with regards to on their batting side, on their facing side. So it kind of took, for me at least from how I saw it, the perspective that I saw was maybe they wanted to learn and maybe practice to understand the pitch and the entire scenarios, because you need to condition yourself as a team as a whole on grounds that you've not really visited. How do you see this? Because currently I don't really know how South Africa, how much quarantine time will our government be providing them, but I'm definitely sure, because if they come earlier, they will eventually even have to have like a 7-day quarantine. So how much would it affect them as well?
Well, look, I mean, the quarantine won't be fun for anyone, but I believe the squad departs on the 15th of January, and then they'll enter a period of quarantine, and then go and they will have an intra-squad practice match. So yes, the quarantine's no fun for anyone who's done it. The isolation can be tough, but these are professional guys, and they know the drill, and they know how privileged they are and blessed they are to be. First of all, to be working in a global pandemic where so many people have lost their livelihoods,
True.
but also to be working in a job that they love and that brings so many people joy. So I think whatever angst and anxieties, yes, we shouldn't discount them, but I think they will be tempered somewhat by the understanding that they are in a very privileged position. I mean, they'll just be itching to get out there. It's a series that hasn't just been long in the making over the last few years. It's been 14 years in the making. So this is an entire generation of South Africans that haven't played in Pakistan and grew up watching, great contests. The 100 not out that Gary Kirsten got, the 81 that stand of 81 that Pat Simcox put on, the 5 for that Dale Steyn got in the last time out. So it's just an exciting tour. I think they just can't wait to get out in the field, and it's such a shame that fans won't be there to see it, because it really is a monumental occasion.
Let's hope for the best. Daniel, thank you so very much for being on board with us on this show today and sharing your wisdom with us. We'll definitely have you on board once again once the event and the series entirely starts. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Look forward to it.
Pleasure. So this was from the world of cricket, and let's hope, as Daniel said, that it's going to be technically very hard for them with regards to flying into Pakistan. But yes, it's the game of excitement, and we all look forward for that excitement. But now we'll just give you a quick brief on the football side of the world. Yes, so Marine versus Tottenham. Obviously, 5-0 was the score in the FA Cup when Vincius actually scored a hat-trick, which is kind of awesome. And, they're taking this to a next level. And right, I said that, this was basically this 16-year-old substitute who also made to score, which is definitely going on the right track. So I think super job done from them. Then the second match was Manchester United, which actually moved on to the third round. Yes, only one goal that actually happened was by Scott McTominay, which is kind of awesome. And with regards to that, yes, they won against Watford. And this was like the second match that really happened, even though there are still COVID restrictions happening, but they're still trying to have those matches on. Then AC Milan beat Torino. Yes, this was by Ibrahimovic. Yes, Ibrahimovic returned from his injury and managed to take the team ahead, which is definitely awesome. And when it comes to Ibrahimovic, he is also a legend, literally a legend with regards to his performance as a footballer, and one of the most wittiest footballers that you'll ever see. But yes, so this was the basic happenings of the football side that I discussed. Like I said, AC Milan finally managed to beat Torino, and the most important news that's coming up your way next is Tokyo Olympics. Yes, let's head to the idea of Tokyo Olympics, because Tokyo Olympics is still planning on going underway. The organizers have said that they'll still manage to expedite the show, which still is kind of skeptical, but they said they'll do it, even though there is a very, very serious declaration of emergency in Tokyo. But yet again, they say that they want to pull off this event. If they manage to do so, it would be very interesting, because if you all remember, the series had been announced. Obviously, the Olympics had been announced a few months ago, but things slowly and gradually started deteriorating with regards to the fact that even though it is Olympics, but COVID has literally taken all over the world to all the organizers and events and players. So I wish the very best for this event. I hope the Olympics manage to happen. But anyways, this was from the world of sports. We started from cricket to football to Tokyo Olympics. Anyways, guys, if you have anything too, you can write to us and you can reach us on our social media handles. Till then, take good care of yourself. Bye-bye.